And just moving on to our second speaker, I'd like to welcome Sonja Grussendorf from London School of Economics, and I'll let you just
So she's already said it, but I've written it down, so I'm going to say it again. I'm Sonja Grussendorf. I'm a senior learning technologist at the London School of Economics. And I want to begin with our conference theme. So themes are useful frameworks. They give structure and purpose, order, form, and substance. They're constraints against which our thinking can grow and prosper, like a clematis against a garden wall. Themes are frameworks, and they work by keeping things in as well as keeping things out, which means we can ask, at the exclusion of what do we focus on this year's clearly connected concepts, connect, collaborate, and create? I would add the notion of care for a start, but not because it has been excluded, but rather because it is implicitly already there and it deserves to be made explicit. Care is the name for the realm within which connections, collaboration, and creativity can unfold in the first place. In care, we can more properly examine the question why. For example, why at this year's conference we should care about connections, collaborations, and creativity. Why I care about the visual, and why anyone cares about anything at all. So today I take care of my work through the lens of connect, collaborate, and create. So this is what I promised in my abstract, that I would reflect on a rather loosely defined design project. This is what I promised, and I intend to keep, if not exactly to the letter, this promise, or rather not to all the letters, but just only, perhaps only these ones. That I will use my project as a springboard to consider the visual, that I will wonder why and how aesthetics, the beautiful and good design matter to us, and consider how, if at all, it matters that learning technologists bring their attention, their care, to the visual also. So clearly, the why is more meaningful than the what and the how. Why does good design matter? Equally clearly, without content, the what and the how, the why would simply sit there, annoying and intrusive like a child that wants answers but doesn't tell us what it wants the answers to be about. So I hope you will appreciate that. First, I will do some mundane presentation context, also known as this is what I did, and then I will try to keep this as short as possible. Okay? So in March 2015, Peter Bryant, the head of our department, came to me and said, I want you to lead on the design project. That's what he did. Get some graphic designers to make us some visuals, choose some filmmakers to work with and celebrate our e-learning innovators, put together a pool of young student artists. So I was to create a creative hub that the LSE academics could draw on for all aspects of their teaching. And note that the teaching dimension is here really essential. Of course, the LSE, like most universities, has its own design unit, but their remit is not pedagogical. And that was virtually all he actually said to me. And there's nothing more brilliant than be given a remit that is entirely vague, because it means you can fill it with meaning as you see fit. So I was very lucky. In any case, I did understand the remit to be meaningful. The intention was clearly to elevate the visual, to recognize its rhetorical power, its ubiquitous presence and cultural, social importance, in short, to bring it back to its proper place, which it had somehow lost at the overly textual LSE. So as part of this, we created a series of video celebrations and articles of academics who properly innovate their teaching practice with us. This was a small nod to understanding that although research, teaching and administrative burdens on academic staff have increased exponentially over the last 30 years, recognition and reward are given exclusively to research output. You'll all be familiar with that. Studies have shown that a thank you does a lot to increase academic job satisfaction. So with the LSE Innovator Series, we say thank you to those who care about teaching. But more importantly, this focus on visual creativity that I was given allowed me to re-examine the use of our VLE. Moodle. Here was a chance to invite academics to re-examine their relationship to using Moodle in their teaching, well, if they ever had one. A chance to persuade them to view it as a space at which learning can happen, as opposed to a space into which we shovel inordinate amounts of text, badly arranged, obtrusively placed, as if to constantly shout, all learning is reading. So we opened a call for academics to ignite my Moodle. And unsurprisingly, almost no one answered. Unsurprisingly, because Moodle is boring. And its boringness is entrenched, certainly at the LSE. I find it boring. When I see our LSE Moodle, I want to die. I blame this on Moodle having been misunderstood from the outset and then systematically abused over the years. It has become an administrative tool at worst and a glorified, overspec Dropbox Plus at best. Some blame Moodle itself, pointing to it being cluttered by default. I blame me for not having tried harder to make its potential understood. Now, my excuse is that when I look at our Moodle, I want to die. Through the design project, I have rediscovered my will to live. So luckily, one academic did answer our call, and we are currently redesigning her Moodle course in tandem with redesigning her teaching approach. So here's a screenshot of her Moodle as is. It is a beautiful example of how VLEs are almost never known for what they are: spaces. Online they may be, but they are spaces into which we send our students and where we ask them to be. So my academic knows exactly how she wants to be with her students physically, what she expects of them, to make content with each other, to self-select into research groups, to communicate, collaborate, connect, and create, and she knows exactly how to facilitate this in a physical classroom. And naturally, resources are essential to her course, so are reading lists. And if she didn't have the web, she would put all this essential information into a course guide, carry those guides into the room, the classroom, in a box, and allow the students to consult them whenever they need. But as you can see, online, that box is as big as the classroom itself, and it's loud and shouty. In week 2, we discuss migration policy, and it shouts this in week 3 and 4 and 5 and 6 also. Every time somebody goes into this classroom, that box shouts about week 2. It's uncomfortable, useless, and ugly. So here's a screenshot of her Moodle after I thought about it for a bit, and I mean for maybe 3 hours. I eliminated clutter, I arranged the space thematically, I put all the resources into one box and put a lid on it. I listened to Jennifer telling me her students need to communicate, collaborate, and make stuff. So there's a dedicated space in which the students can do that. The space reflects Jennifer's teaching approach. It is cleaner, easier to navigate, and visually more appealing because of it. And if any of you want to argue that, we can do that later outside, and I've got weapons with me. This is definitely more appealing. I'm just going to let that stand there. But much more importantly, why care? How and why has it become visually appealing? More importantly, considering what Moodle is, a learning technology, a suite of online teaching tools, why does it matter that it is also visually appealing? Why do we care about the aesthetic, the visual? Well, first, there are, of course, universal design principles. Easier navigation and visual clarity increases usability. Usability ensures accessibility. Clarity of design means that design elements aren't obtrusive. That means they recede into the background and allow users to focus on what really matters: their work, their learning. And the Japanese word for simplicity or elimination of clutter is kanso, something like that. And as a design principle, it is to remind us to think not in terms of decoration, but in terms of clarity, a kind of clarity that may be achieved through omission or exclusion of the non-essential. That was a quote. But these are, I would suggest, surface reasons for a focus on design. They are at heart pragmatic and utilitarian, which to my mind is reductive. This is not to say that these reasons aren't fundamentally important, but they are not exhaustive. Next step. So there are, of course, proper pedagogical arguments to be made, and we can bundle these up under the term of visual literacy. Visual literacy is necessary so that we may recognize the visual's rhetorical power, its ubiquitous presence, as I said earlier, and cultural social importance. The world is suffused with images. It has always been. This is not anything new. We are essentially visual creatures. But as Peter Felton points out, and I quote, living in an image-rich world does not mean students naturally possess sophisticated visual literacy skills, just as continually listening to an iPod does not teach a person to critically analyze or create music. Like any literacy, visual literacy is an intellectual, reflective ability that must be learned so that we and our students do not stand defenseless and uncritical against images that impart messages, ideas, ideologies, meaning. And I quote again, that composition studies, and indeed most academic disciplines, are only now beginning to take visual representation seriously reflects a failure of many academics to understand human learning, rather than a radical change sparked by technology and culture. To train students to see critically and to create in multiple modes should be an essential component of a liberal education. That gives away, I think, that Peter Felton is an American. Liberal education presumably is an arts and humanities education. The first step towards this is to recognize ourselves as visual creatures, to reinstate the visual properly vis-à-vis its counterpart, the textual. And yet, I suggest that even with these reasons, we remain in the realm of pragmatism and utilitarianism. And in any case, visual literacy does not explain why online learning spaces should be visually appealing. That is, it doesn't explain why we should care about the aesthetics of it. You still with me? Which means I'm now coming back to the notion of care, and I want to approach it via two further stepping stones, namely aesthetics and the visceral. So the aesthetic matters to us because the visual matters, because we are visual creatures. We are artful, we are creative, we are homo faber or homo faber. We care about art, design, beauty. This caring for the visual constitutes a particular way of being that we are. Now, some say we alone among the animals are aesthetic, but if we consider the satin bowerbird, that's that one, where is it? And his beautifully decorated structures, we might want to lay such reductive categorizations to rest also. Attracting mates, securing reproduction, are not the sole evolutionary drives all behavior can be reduced to. For if they were, then so would be this talk, because I'm behaving right now. Moreover, decorating their boughs is a learned skill, one that is possible for a little bowerbird to excel at, and through life, getting better at it. It is quite unlike the accidental plumage of a peacock, for example. The aesthetic speaks to us on the reflective level. We reflect on it, or we engage with it on that level. But the visual affects us also on a more primordial level, the visceral. Our natures are not merely composed of the intellect, but also of feelings, instinct, the body, the gut. Appealing designs make us feel good, and on this level, we can combine the utilitarian with the hedonistic. If well-designed spaces make our learners feel good, then we have a duty of care to design their learning spaces well, online and offline. Not only because it will measurably make them learn better, but because pleasure, happiness, feeling good are goods in and for themselves. And if you agree with me that this is a valid motivation for caring about the visual, then it is because you care at a fundamental level, by which I'm saying if you agree with me, you're a good person. So we care because as humans we operate in the realm of care. In Being and Time, Martin Heidegger explained that the being of humans reveals itself as care. And I quote, "The phenomenon of care in its totality is essentially something that cannot be torn asunder. So any attempts to trace it back to special acts or drives like willing and wishing or urge and addiction, or to construct it out of these will be unsuccessful." You can read this up in Being and Time, page 238, or let me put it less carefully, but more accessibly, care is at the heart of what and who we are. This extends to the realm of education, of course, and this sort of appeal to remember, care, and love is not so very uncommon at all. In The Revenge of the Monsters of Education Technology, Audrey Waters reminds us that education technology requires our love and our care so as not to become even more monstrous, so that it can become marvelous instead. And Bell Hooks wrote that the heart of education as a practice of freedom is to promote growth. It's very much an act of love in that sense of love as something that promotes our spiritual and mental growth. The academy is not paradise, but learning is a place where paradise can be created. And here is a final segue, I will do this quickly, which might illustrate what I'm trying to get at. Paul Klee's Pedagogical Sketchbook, an odd text that explains the principles of art, design, form and function with sparse sketches and sparser text. An extraordinary little book, and I have no time to describe it here. I want to mention only why he created it. Klee became a teacher at Bauhaus, and as a teacher, he reflected on his own working methods and techniques. And he wrote, "When I came to be teacher, I had to account explicitly for what I had been used to doing unconsciously. Care in the face of the other means to be accountable to them. We care not because of extrinsic factors, not because it's written into our contracts or our job descriptions, and not because we are being held accountable by others. Paul Klee was not told by his employers to account for his methods. He came to be a teacher, which meant he became accountable to his students from within himself." That is what it means to take care. Paul Klee, very special artist that he was, did not display any special care that would be alien to any of us. I suggest that his response was really rather ordinary, which is why I feel no compunction in saying that in our practice, this is what we do too. We care. We know about connecting. We connect academics to each other. They're students. We connect students to students. We know about collaboration, its usefulness to learning. We embrace creativity, both as a concept for students and as an approach in our practice, because fundamentally we care. If we don't act out of love, we don't really act meaningfully at all. This is no truer of a learning technologist than it is of a zookeeper, but it is no less true either. I'm done.
Thank you very much, and I'd like to invite questions. Is there anyone who'd like to start the ball rolling? Do you see anyone?
I'm happy if you don't.
Hi, Steve Lott-Wheaton, University of Warwick. It could seem like a big rat hole to go down looking at ever making your Moodle look better and better and better. You pick a new font, you change the colour of it slightly, change the background colour.
Yeah.
How far do you go? How far is pleasant enough?
I wouldn't go that far at all. This is something like I noticed when I was writing this that I wrote something very similar at all 2004. It's all about the spaces, and people don't seem to get the metaphor that is very simple. Here's a classroom, you know what to do, and here's a classroom, but it's online. You decide what it looks like. Don't spend a lot of time on it, but think, would you put a box in, or would you, every time that the students come to you and say, by the way, do you know what we're doing in week 2? It's week 7 already. So the design principles are very simple. It doesn't have to be white, it doesn't have to be green or yellow, and those things change, and you can in fact pay people to do that for you. It has to be decluttered. I thought I kind of made that clear. But there is a sense of simplicity. Declutter it for a start. And Moodle does come out of the box with a lot of clutter attached to it. So that's something that, of course, the academics don't know. But I think a lot of the times that the teachers don't understand that we don't want a static website. What are you doing here? If you're just using it as a Dropbox, then use Dropbox, because that's, you don't have to worry about the design. Did I answer? I was trying to say, not very far at all. Yeah, that's my answer. Not very far at all into that rabbit hole.
Okay, well, thank you very much.
You're very welcome.